Welcome to Backstage with Geoffrey Morrissey. I am your host, Geoffrey Morrissey. We're backstage at the Sinclair today with Israel from Blind Pilot. Israel, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. I'm doing well. The last time I was able to catch you guys was at Newport Folk Festival, which is just such an amazing festival. Tell me a little bit about your experience there. Were you able to see anyone or catch any cool acts?
Absolutely. It was like too many amazing acts going on to see everything. It was incredible. Hooray for the Riff Raff right after our set.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ran over to see Big Thief, who I'm totally obsessed with.
Yes.
Yeah, their songs are amazing. Fleet Foxes. And then not playing that year, but I'm a huge fan of Raylan Baxter, and he was just like wandering around there, and I got to meet him. That was really nice.
I think that they did this really cool thing with Rayland and Alinda from Hooray, and actually Justin Vernon of Bon Iver. They did like a songbook of Bill Withers, maybe.
About that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I was kind of sad because I had an interview during that time and I missed it, but certainly one of the highlights of the festival that year for sure.
Yeah.
And then so this is really cool. Back home in Oregon, you guys are going to be doing some shows with Oregon's orchestra. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then this is something that you guys have done before. So what is it like to sort of hear these songs arranged differently and played live in such a unique way?
It's for me, it is like one of the most amazing musical experiences that I've ever had. To be on a stage with that many musicians all playing the same thing is just incredible. And to hear like the sound of an orchestra, unamplified, but just this massive sound behind you is really like nothing else.
Well, sweet. I definitely looking forward to hearing about those shows. Wish I could fly out for them, but I'm sure there will be plenty of videos and such to keep it well documented. Yeah. And then I was reading an interview that you gave, and you had this really succinct and fascinating quote, and it was, "Art precedes reason." Which I really liked a lot. I think it was in the context of creativity. But tell me a little bit about that. Art precedes reason. Unpack that phrase for me.
Well, to me that means, as somebody that spends their time writing songs, and to me it just is a good thing to focus on, that songs seem to come from a place that is not like premeditated or thought out. They come in a flash, or it's usually something you didn't think of before until you started writing. And I guess in a broader sense, it also means there's all kinds of good reasons to have art. There's it's good for local economy, and it's good for education. It's like, been shown that kids that study art do better in math and sciences and all this. So in our age of reason, there's a lot of good reasons to have art. But I think, to me, it's important to recognize that art is this incredibly valuable part of human existence for its own sake, and not as it relates to anything else in like a logical manner, if that makes sense.
I couldn't agree more. And then this album, And Then Like Lions, really just sort of, I think, encapsulates that really well. And I was reading that this, making this album really changed your relationship, or how you view the relationship between life and death. And I know that a lot of that has to do with the thematics of it. And we'll get into that later, and we'll get into the song Like Lions later. But how do you think that manifests on the album? Is there one or two songs that you really think encapsulates that relationship changing?
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think a couple that relate to that specific idea, there's a lot of them, but two that come up are Seeing is Believing. Mm-hmm. And that one I wrote when my dad was pretty sick and trying to hold on to a sense of belief in life and a sense of like courage, and that like there was something to fight for. And this is a person that gave me so much encouragement in my life, so I wanted to give some of that to him. And that song related quite a bit to that idea of mortality. And then after his death, I wrote this song, Like Lions, the title track. And that definitely was sort of this, I don't know, I guess it's like venturing into the idea of what all we give during this life when we're called upon it, and the strength that we conjure up, and in the end it's like we give our lives, every one of us, by the end of it. So it's this enormous amount to give, but it's also this it can be this courageous act too.
Mm-hmm. And Like Lions was one of the most brilliant songs I've heard, especially in the past couple years. And to close out the album too, I mean, holy crap, like what a way to leave the listener. So take me through writing that. Did that come up early? Did it just sort of all come to you at once? How'd you settle on the lion? All that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes I'll look for synchronicities and relationships between things that are popping up around me for images and songs, and that was the case with the lions. There was a story with my nephews where they were getting bullied at preschool. They were like, I think 3 and 5 at the time, and the older one was helping the younger one like sort of stand up to this kid that they saw as a bully, and who had like knocked down the little one, and they were relating the story, and they were like, and then we're like lions and we like stand together, and it was so cute and funny, but also it was this, to me, this perfect image of what it feels like to try to call upon strength that you don't have and try to embody something that's stronger than yourself, and then finding that. So there was that story floating around. There was also the flag that my dad made for me when I was a little kid that is the album cover. And I went up to my studio one day, I saw that flag because I had hung it up sort of to like give myself encouragement while writing the album, as a way to, he would hang that flag up on the kitchen wall when I would do something cool as a kid, and it was a form of encouragement. So I thought I would hang it up in my studio. So I came up to my studio and I saw that flag, and just the melody for the chorus, the tag came, and I literally just like sat down at my writing desk right then and wrote the whole song without moving. And it was just like, one of those rare times where it's just a gift, and it's like you're not wanting to think about anything else but that for the hours it takes. And so that seemed, I think that was maybe the last song that I wrote for the album.
And I'm not a musician by any means, and I don't know how this comes across, but it does come across that you just kind of sat that down and it all just came out, and it was a gift.
Cool.
So it's a really cool song. If you haven't listened to it, pause this, go to Spotify, listen to it right now. But you mentioned a flag, and I did see that there is the state flag of Oregon on the stage.
Oh, yeah.
So what inspired that? Because I think it's really, especially in Boston, people here have so much pride from where they're from.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool to sort of show that on stage too. So why'd you guys throw that up there?
That you'd have to ask Ian, our vibraphone player. He's like, he's pretty into like sports teams and flags and like, doing that kind of thing. And we were playing a show in we were playing a show. What is the name of that town? It's like in Southern Oregon. It was with Gregory Allen Isaacoff. We were doing a show, and he found that flag in an antique shop, and then just started putting it on stage, and so and the band formed in Oregon, so nobody has a problem with it.
Well, there you go. Sometimes those are the best stories. And then so this album again, and then Like Lions, it's a conversation about different kinds of loss. And then so really, when I read the background to this record, your story struck me as that of the story of Job. Just it seemed to be like one thing after the other. Yeah. But how do we talk about grief? And I know that you sort of mentioned like people are comfortable talking about it, and then they want you to move on, then you're done talking about
totally.
it. So how do you talk about it, I guess, once that window closes? How do we as a society get more comfortable with this thing that we all obviously go through?
Yeah, well, for me, songwriting is the way that my best way to use words and to communicate. So I wrote a bunch of songs about it, and it's been a good way for me to talk about it, because I found on this tour a lot of people that in the past it might come up and give a kind compliment or something after a show have been wanting to share their personal stories and relating to these songs in a way of, I guess, feeling comfortable to express their grief and loss or some hardship that they've gone through, which I find incredibly encouraging. And I just think anything that we can do to promote acceptance for that kind of conversation is tremendously healthy. And there's just, I think there's so much stigma around just kind of like being wide open and broken in front of other people. But it's really important. It's if you can do that, you can show a certain kind of strength that we can all benefit from. So, yeah.
And even within the narrative of the record, it's like, this is the record about this, almost implying that it will never be returned to in another record, you know? Like,
Sure.
It's interesting. I don't know. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. In some ways, like, this record just feels like, you know, the other records that I've made. It's just like, these are the kind of songs I make. But
Yeah.
And some similar themes. But the way that most of these songs came, it was like the first time I had real specific intention behind writing songs. I really wanted to make some songs that would give encouragement to my family and maybe even my community. And so yeah, that set them apart to me. And that's why I felt like it was important to like give the story of them along with them being released.
And then do you think you'll take that specificity into the next record as well, sort of having a purpose going into the studio?
I don't know. Not so far. I've been writing some songs for it, and it's like, I don't know. I think that was just a chapter that I was going through for whatever reason, and I don't think it's that unusual. It's pretty crazy how often people have come up to me and been like, yeah, like this happened, and then this happened, and this happened, and for some reason it just seems to come in waves like that for some people's lives. And that was a chapter of that for me, but not necessarily right now.
Wonderful. And then, so what were some of the songs and records that you were listening to as you were sort of crafting this? So music that sort of helped you got through your time where it was a little bit tough.
Yeah. You know, I for whatever reason, for this one, it felt really important to me that I didn't listen to other people's music for inspiration, partly because I had a hard time finding other albums that like had a similar or same intention as what I was going for, and also because when people would mention like, oh, you should listen to this person's album if you're like, you know, working on that, it just seemed important that it was as personal as possible and was like almost like a conversation I was having with my immediate family. Like that's how I wanted it to sound. So yeah, I kind of avoided listening to much in that form of inspiration. I did listen to a lot of old field recordings of Sami yoiking. Sami are people of indigenous to northern Scandinavia, and they have a non-Western scale type of music. So I don't know how much of that came across in this album, but I was listening to a lot of that.
Of course. I could talk to you about this record all day, but I'm going to try and wrap it up. The last song we'll talk about is Umpqua Rushing, and there's one line that just stuck out there for me in the chorus: "Nothing that I say is worth remembering." I just want to explore the irony of that a little bit, because this album is memorable, and it's one that's very much worth hearing, especially at very specific times in life. So take me through, I guess, that line and sort of like the different meanings for you.
Yeah, I think... honestly, I think I was just expressing a feeling of hopelessness and meaninglessness in a time of despair. And it was mostly just in the wake of a really big breakup in my life. And it was trying to come up with ways to hold on to the important memories of that and ways to let go of what I could. And I think that song is sort of an exploration of like, just, okay, fine, I will dive into like the deep despair of this, what this emotion is, this loss. But then it's also like, by the end of it, staking some sort of claim of like, not necessarily moving on, but like deciding how to hold meaning and let it be what it was, but still carry that meaning with you.
Of course. And then this will be my last question for you. Who are you listening to right now? Who are some of the artists that have your ear?
Let's see. Adrienne Lenker from Big Thief.
Oh my God, yes.
Her songs are incredible. I'm completely obsessed with her songwriting. And what else has been coming up a lot? Well, actually, I've been pretty obsessed with Charlie Cunningham. His record. He's opening part of this tour with us. He'll be playing tonight.
Well, perfect. And if you're not listening to And Then Like Lions, I don't know if you're waiting for an invitation, but consider this one. It's a damn good record. And Israel, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time today.
Thanks so much, Geoffrey.